Hello, and welcome to another episode of Standing Apart, the podcast where we explore how businesses and individuals can truly differentiate themselves in a crowded marketplace. I'm your host, Nigel Ridpath. Coming up, we have a great interview with Emilie Lewis and Harrison Radie. They are, respectively, the folks in charge of marketing and sales for MJBiz Conference, the world's largest cannabis industry expo. We'll unpack the sector from seed to sale, some fascinating and surprising insights. As always, we'll feature our superhero of the week, this time highlighting a group of young activists, and I get to let off steam in my 1-minute rant. Right, before we dive in, I'm going to do that thing again where I shamelessly plug my book. You know, the one I mentioned last episode, and probably will mention next episode too. Yes, that one. Look, I'm genuinely excited about this project, so you're going to have to bear with me whilst I occasionally bang on about it. The Time Traveller's Guide to Management started as this mad idea. What if you could teach leadership lessons through proper stories instead of boring case studies about synergy and paradigm shifts? So I've written 7 management tales set across different historical periods. We've got team building in feudal Japan, personal effectiveness in ancient Persia, and motivation in Belle Epoque Paris. There's situational leadership during the Spanish Armada, delegation in 18th century Venice, managing underperformers during the California Gold Rush, and recruitment in the Soviet space program. The concept is simple. Learn management principles whilst being entertained by stories of time travel, historical drama, and the occasional narrow escape from execution. No, I made up that last bit. Anyway, much better than another PowerPoint about stakeholder engagement, I reckon. The first draft is done, all 7 chapters written, and we're now in the editing phase. I've set up a Kickstarter to fund the production with some rather nice packages if you fancy supporting an independent author who's probably too old to be writing time travel fiction. It launches on the 23rd of September. The link's in the show notes, obviously, and the book should be out early in 2026. And yes, I will absolutely mention this again in future episodes. Consider yourself warned. You will know by now that I love to offload. There are all sorts of things that wind me up, and each episode I get to have a rant. But in the interests of my well-being, I try to limit myself to no more than a minute. So here we go. Here's this week's 1-minute rant. Right, let's talk about BP's spectacular green U-turn, shall we? For years, BP positioned themselves as beyond petroleum. They used green branding, made speeches about net zero, and marketed themselves as the oil company leading the energy transition. They wanted to be seen as the good guys. And many people believed it. Investors backed it. The media covered it positively. Look, big oil is finally changing. Then, February 2025 arrives, and what does BP announce? They're slashing renewable investment by over £4 billion and increasing oil and gas spending to £10 billion. Their CEO publicly stated they went too far too fast on green energy. Too far, too fast. The planet's heating up and you think you move too quickly towards cleaner energy? This perfectly illustrates what's wrong with corporate sustainability messaging. It sounds great when times are good, but the moment profits are under pressure, suddenly environmental commitments become overly ambitious. BP didn't struggle with the energy transition. They appear to have changed strategy entirely. They just got very good at talking about transformation. And here's what's remarkable. They're presenting this retreat as strategic thinking rather than a reversal of previous commitments. If you want to understand genuine commitment, don't just read the glossy annual reports. Watch what companies actually do when the market gets challenging. Stop the clock. In December, over 1,000 exhibitors, 200 industry speakers, and 20,000 attendees will congregate on the Las Vegas Convention Center with one topic in mind: cannabis. I had the pleasure this week of a conversation with Emilie Lewis and Harrison Radie. They are the team behind the MJBiz conference. So I'm got the pleasure of welcoming two guests to the podcast this afternoon, and this one is going to be a bit different to some of the other interviews I've done for the Standing Apart podcast. We've got Emilie Lewis and Harrison Radie from the MJBizCon 2025, and we'll go into a little bit about what MJBizCon is all about in a second. But suffice it to say that, in summary, it's the leading B2B conference for the cannabis industry, and it's going to be held in Las Vegas later on this year in early December. And I thought I'd start by just giving 3 points about the cannabis situation in the UK, because I think having that as a contrast is going to be quite interesting. First of all, cannabis itself, any possession, is illegal in the UK. It's counted as a Class B drug, so that's up there with ketamine, amphetamines, barbiturates, some fairly heavy duty drugs. Secondly, anything with THC in it is illegal in the UK. And THC is the kind of one of the main active compounds. Lastly, even though some medicinal products were legalized in 2018, there are only 3 products accredited for medicinal use in the UK, and they're only prescribed as an absolute last resort by the NHS. So that's the kind of background in the UK. Emilie, Harrison, great to see you. Tell me about MJBiz and how the environment that you're working in is so different to the one I've just outlined. Emilie, maybe you can start.
Yeah, thank you, first of all, for having us, Nigel. And yes, I'm sure this is going to be a very different subject matter for your audience today. But you are correct in saying that MJBiz, we are globally the largest B2B trade show event for the cannabis industry. And I know it's interesting when people hear cannabis, especially where you are in the UK, but also still in the US. We're still classified as a Schedule I drug and federally illegal. And so, when you talk about the quote unquote business of cannabis, it is a real business. And not only here in the US, but internationally as well, we're seeing, we're seeing the mindset shift, and we're seeing laws begin to change. So with that, we are the largest show. We happen annually once a year. We're everything from seed to sell. So I think a lot of people, their first time at MJBiz, it might be a little bit of a different environment than what they think. I know for me, my first time at MJBiz, I was expecting, I had all of the notions in my head about the cannabis industry, and I walked into what was and looks like a really large agriculture show. And that's really,
Right.
when you think about cannabis, it's a plant.
Yep.
It is a plant. And we talk about farming day in and day out. And so that really is the heart of MJBiz, where everything from soil and fertilizer and cultivation machinery, all the way into lab tech and innovative machines that pull the different elements out of the flower to make the end product, even to packaging and processing, business services, attorneys. I mean, everybody in cannabis needs an attorney, and they need a tax, a really good accountant, all the way to retail, to the end product, which you see in dispensaries, and on the shelves of a retail store. So, again, I think it is a very interesting conversation. We are a robust industry, and we do have to get creative about how we do business in the cannabis industry. It definitely, there are hurdles every single day. And so that's what MJBiz is here for. It's here to support the industry. It's here to help businesses grow. It's here to give them the infrastructure that they need and the support that they need. And a really, really highly regulated industry that there are a lot of loopholes, and it changes every single day.
And state by state. So we're constantly having to stay on top of that and be the front movers.
So picking up on that point, Harrison, Emilie was talking about it being federally illegal, but there is different state by state legislation, right?
Each state is state by state, whether that's medical or recreational. So we offer things like the fact book, which helps guide and helps companies expand and migrate from state to state and do business.
Yeah.
And so are there more states that have it legal for medicinal purposes than recreational purposes?
So now in the U.S., we have 40 states that either have medical or rec.
Okay.
But the U.S. is very different than the international market. The U.S. has obviously we're steeped in capitalism here in the U.S. and we have created an industry that really is about commerce in the U.S. Whereas what we see internationally is the industry really does heavily concentrate on the medical side of cannabis. One is not wrong and one is not right. They're both very interesting models. And there's a lot, I think, that the US can learn from the international model, because in the international model, let's just take Germany for example. The government and scientists and pharma, it's not big pharma because pharma is very different in the US, but what would be considered the pharmacy industry in those countries get involved from the beginning. So there is a lot of testing. There's, 3 to 4 years of testing and trials and, different beta tests that the government and the pharmaceutical industry do together overseas in order to get to the end product. And it is for medical use. Again, the pros to that is that they really do look at the plant as a medical solution.
Medicine. Yep.
So as a medicine, right, Harrison, as a medicine. Whereas in the US, medical really is a path to rec. It really is a means to rec. But I do think that conversation is starting to change. I think there's really amazing groups in the US that are really starting to bring to light, the medical uses and the benefits and the science behind it, and really trying to petition for our industry, whether it be insurance or pharma, to get involved. But, we need some federal regulation for that to happen. We need either rescheduling. I know the industry would love descheduling, but rescheduling would open up 280E, which is a tax bill here that really has high taxes to it. So business is tough. It's not easy. Think about if you were to open up a business as a small business owner and you couldn't write off your actual office or your employee taxes or,
Really?
any of that. None of that can happen in the US for cannabis businesses. And again, there's loopholes and there's things that you can work around, but they're heavily taxed, 70+% in the US.
Wow.
So it is not an easy industry. It's not for the faint of heart, but I do see that, we're on the precipice of what might happen with rescheduling with our current administration, which is going to be huge for our industry. We're going to get rid of some of those, that 280E tax bill. They're going to be able to walk into a bank and open a bank account at a normal bank, a worldwide known bank, not, a specific cannabis industry bank, because, again, there's a lot of loopholes, but we're moving in the right direction.
And so where are the big opportunities in the industry at the moment?
I'll let Harrison take that one.
Yeah, there are several, and Emilie mentioned that we're the full life cycle. So we're seed to sale, and we're different and we're unique in that way. Well, we also provide, at the end of the day, we're serving the cannabis industry, and we always have to recognize that. And one thing that wasn't brought up is we also have a major conference that happens during the show as well. So there's a lot of education. We're constantly looking at new opportunities and ways to help the industry grow. But right now, with things like tariffs, there's a lot of opportunity in the United States for manufacturing and things of that sort. So to Emilie's point too, there's a lot of good things on the horizon that we've been waiting for a while. And as soon as those hit, we have lots of plans of action already set in place to capitalize on that.
I think you're seeing, just to add on to that, I think you're seeing a lot of innovation. And what I will say is there's a lot of very innovative businesses in this industry that cross different industries, especially on our cultivation side. There's businesses that They might be growing tomatoes and blueberries, and they're also growing cannabis. And so they've learned, from other industries, and they've also learned a lot from cannabis because it is a very specific plant and very specific needs in terms of a grow. And so I think because of the way and the means of which you grow and dry and extract what you need from the plant, I think cannabis has actually given some really amazing innovation and insights into other sides of agriculture. So,
And it's all about the quality. Everyone wants the best quality. So the science behind and the technology behind it is leading the way.
We were talking just before we started recording about some of the challenges in marketing of this product, some legal challenges. Do you want to kind of expand a little bit on that?
yeah, and there's definitely struggles across, the whole of the industry, but marketing is it's a very interesting dynamic in cannabis. So if you're a marketer for a minute, take a pause and imagine that you're marketing a product that you can't actually show. And I'll just leave it there. So, that presents a lot of challenges. So that is what we're dealing with as a marketer. Because it's still a federally illegal drug, I cannot show my product on social media channels without running the risk of being banned or being, taken down for a day or two. I can tell you just this season with the digital campaigns that we run, and we all know as marketers, paid digital in the world of social, I mean, that's our bread and butter. I think we've had 16 different instances just this season of our ads being taken down. And what that does is you lose 2 to 3 days. So your ad's taken down, you have to, file a formal, reason for why they took it down was not right, or change what they're saying. And now with the technology around AI is getting much smarter. So when I put a digital ad out there, what AI will do is AI will crawl not the website or the CTA, the call to action that's on that ad. It will crawl 3 websites deep that maybe that CTA is somehow linked to. And if that website has even a design of a flower on it, then we could get shut down. So it's a very, very interesting dynamic. And I will say that marketers, I don't think marketers in the cannabis industry have been given their due time, but I do think in the next few years, I think other industries will really start to see how innovative and smart and creative marketers in cannabis are.
Everyone has to get creative.
Yes.
Yeah.
Yes.
There is a product that is advertised here. There have been some TV adverts. It's a company called Curaleaf. I don't know what.
Oh yeah,
right.
They're
Okay,
one of the largest MSOs, multi-state operators in the U.S.
Okay,
Yes.
fine. And the information given is so opaque as to be almost impossible to understand what even sector of product they might be talking about. It's just an advert that says we have the answers for you. Answers to what? Right.
Yeah.
I don't even know what the question is.
The funny part about it, Nigel, and I will say I'm going to show my age here because I've been in marketing for almost 30 years now. It actually is kind of interesting and kind of fun. It takes me back to marketing pre-social media, which was how I started in marketing.
Yep.
That's how we did marketing. We utilized the community. We did a lot of what we called, quote unquote, the kids probably aren't going to understand this, but called guerrilla marketing, where, we would print flyers and we would put flyers in areas, or we would take out, print ads, or we would tap into the community and word of mouth. And honestly, you really have to take marketing back to those days in some instances in cannabis. You obviously still have to be super digital savvy, and even savvier, I think, than some other industries to work around the hurdles. But I also think it's kind of fun that we're going back to the days of how I started in marketing and working more with the community.
Yeah, I remember those days fondly as well. Are there any restrictions around what you can do as a conference, as an expo?
Yeah, and I was going to bring that up. We have to get creative at the show as well. Wow, our show takes place in Las Vegas, and it's in a federally owned building. So again, when you think of the cannabis industry, you also think of consumption. many other trade shows are allowed to have consumption, but at our event, we cannot. So we've had to get creative, and we're excited this year. For the first time, we have a consumption event that will start as the show closes every day of the show. And we'll be shuttling people to this event where our brands that are in MJBizCon can also take part here and have that consumption and that sampling element.
And that's in Las Vegas still, but just in a different building, right?
It's in we have a fabulous partnership with NuWoo, and it's a dispensary, consumption lounge. They have a whole festival area that we'll be utilizing and taking over for the week.
Right.
And
Okay.
they're also on tribal land, which is great. Again, because everything that we do in this industry has been built for years and years on the backs of Black and brown people. And at the end of the day, this industry, while it's newer to the business sector, it's not new by any means. It's the same thing as prohibition, what the alcohol industry went through. Cannabis has been a plant that's been around forever. So that's one thing that's really close to what we do at MJ, is making sure that the social equity side of our business is very prevalent in everything that we do. So we love NuWoo because of their space and because of their business and what they've built, but also it's great that they're tribal owned on tribal land, and we get to give back in that way too.
Yeah. Okay. And where do you see the industry going in the next 5 years? What are the? I mean, you mentioned some stuff around legislation. There's some stuff coming down the track, but in terms of where the innovation's going to be, where the medium-sized players are going to grow into the big-sized players, where do you think you'll be in 5 years' time?
So where are we going to be? Nobody has the crystal ball. There's a lot of things pending, and there's a few different scenarios that could play out. And that's, as I said earlier, we're prepared, for scenario A, B, and C to help grow and support the industry at that time.
Okay. So how international is the conference and expo? Is it very US focused, or have you got interest from overseas as well?
Yeah, historically it has been very US focused. We have put together a few really great partnerships with a lot of our partners that do events overseas. So one great example of that is ICBC. It's a large show in Germany that takes place. So we work with their heads, and we bring a congregation of ICBC European companies, and not only companies, but a lot of the leaders of the industry from the buying side over to our event. So more and more the industry is becoming international, and we're recognizing that and forming partnerships to make sure we're representing globally.
And Nigel, you might know or might not know, and your audience might know or not know, but Germany legalized and is leading the way in Europe. France is coming online. We have other countries that, are over in Europe that are doing really amazing things behind the scenes. I mean, Harrison and I were overseas in May and June for a couple of different conferences, sitting on panels listening to what Sweden is doing right now. And so I do think that international is going through a bit of what we called years ago the green rush here in the US, and we're starting to see that. And I always say this to your earlier question of, where is cannabis going? What's the future? You can't put the genie back in the box. Cannabis is it's not going anywhere. It's only going to grow. It's only going to, become more prevalent, become more of a topic, and eventually legalize. Same as prohibition and what happened with the alcohol industry. So you can't put it back in the box. We're going to grow. It's just how we get there. I don't think anyone knows the route, and we're all guessing, but we don't know the exact route, but we know we'll get there.
Well, listen, we're coming to the towards the end of our time now. I'll let one of you just do the final a plug for the show and the kind of people that you'd love to see there.
Yeah. So at the end of the day, I come from the association world. We are here to serve the industry, and we want to be that platform. And we're constantly looking at ways to do that and to grow and to serve. We have an awesome event, and we know that Currently, right now, we are the #1 cannabis trade show in the world, and we want to keep that, and we want to recognize and just keep on serving and making sure that we're helping the industry grow.
Lovely. And with that, it just leaves me to say that MJBizCon 2025 is starting on the 2nd of December this year, going through to the 5th. It's at the Las Vegas Convention Center, and I'm sure Emilie and Harrison would be delighted to see you there.
Yes.
Thanks, guys.
Yes. Thank
Absolutely.
you, Nigel.
Thanks, Nigel.
I don't know about you, but I learnt a lot from that interview. We have such a limited view of the cannabis industry here in the UK. Governments of all stripes have sought to perpetuate the criminalisation of cannabis. I'm not necessarily going to step into that debate today. What I would say is that it's fascinating to get an insight into how a business sector deals with those highly regulated issues. I wish everybody going to MJBizCon a fruitful conference. And now it's time for my superhero of the week. Before each episode, I find someone or a business that is doing an amazing job of standing apart. This week's superhero isn't a person, it's a movement, and it's one that's rewriting the rules of how you take on corporate giants. Meet Bite Back, the youth activist group that looked at the multi-billion-pound junk food industry and said, "We're not having this anymore." Picture the world these young people navigate every day. You step off the bus, there's a McDonald's ad. Walk to school, KFC billboard. Check your phone, Coca-Cola sponsoring your favorite YouTuber. The junk food industry spends billions specifically targeting teenagers, and guess what? It's working. Childhood obesity rates are climbing, mental health is suffering, and entire generations are being programmed to crave foods that are literally designed to be addictive. Most adults just shrug and say, "That's advertising," or "That's how the world works." Politicians make vague promises about tackling obesity whilst accepting hospitality from the very companies causing the problem. But Bite Back, a group of 13 to 19-year-olds, looked at this system and said, "Not on our watch." Now, these aren't your typical protesters with handmade placards shouting outside corporate headquarters. These young people are strategic, media savvy, and they understand exactly how power works in the 21st century. Their #commercial break campaign didn't just complain about junk food advertising, they created their own counter-advertising. Professional billboards with messages like, "Give young people a commercial break from junk food ads." Clean, powerful, impossible to ignore. They tried to place these billboards across London, targeting the exact same spaces where McDonald's and KFC spend millions reaching young people. Fight fire with fire. Use the system against itself. Here's where the story gets brilliant. The UK's two largest billboard companies flat out rejected their ads, refused to run them. These are the same companies that will happily take money to advertise cigarette-style products to children, but when young people want to respond, suddenly there are concerns about the messaging. Classic corporate censorship, right? The little guy gets silenced by big business. End of story. Wrong. Because Bite Back understood something that most activists miss. Sometimes the rejection is the story. They didn't sulk or give up. They turned that corporate censorship into rocket fuel. In July 2025, they took their story straight to Parliament, arguing that if advertising giants won't let young people have their say in the conversation about their own health, then legislators need to step in and level the playing field. The rejection became bigger news than the original campaign ever could have been. The Streisand effect in perfect action. Try to silence someone and you just amplify their voice. And it worked. In June 2025, they won the Sheila McKechnie Award for Best Consumer Campaign, essentially the Oscars of activism. They successfully placed 365 billboards across London boroughs, partnering with health organisations to replace junk food with health messages. But here's what makes them true superheroes. They're not reinventing the wheel. They're using the tobacco playbook. Remember how we banned cigarette advertising, how we stopped tobacco companies from sponsoring sports, how we made it socially unacceptable for these companies to target children? Buyback is applying exactly the same strategy to junk food, and it's working. They understand that you don't beat a system by standing outside it shouting. You beat it by using its own rules against it, by being smarter, more strategic, and more persistent than the corporations think young people can be. They've proved that when corporate giants try to silence young voices, those voices don't just disappear, they get louder. They get more creative, and they find new platforms. Sometimes that's exactly what changes the world. The junk food industry spent decades assuming young people would just accept whatever was marketed to them. Bite Back proved them spectacularly wrong, and that's why they are my superheroes of the week. With the Kickstarter and book launch over the next few months, it's a busy time. Having said that, I have an interview lined up with Kyle Austin Young, who has a new book out this autumn about probability in business. That's not one to miss. So the best thing to do is hit subscribe, and then you'll get episodes as they drop. With irksome algorithms and endless content choices, standing apart isn't always easy, even for podcasts. If you found value in today's discussion, take 5 seconds to rate or share this episode. Those small actions make an enormous difference in helping the podcast reach more leaders who might benefit from these ideas. Please do check out the Kickstarter. It launches on 23rd of September, and if you could bring yourself to make a pledge, that would be amazing. In the meantime, I've built quite a library of back episodes. Why not go and explore some of the other topics from earlier in the year? Finally, remember that standing apart isn't just about being different. It's about making a meaningful difference. Thanks for listening. Standing Apart is a Sun Bear Consulting production.